Khalil Brooks, 16, sits in Dunhill's courthouse, palms sweaty. Silver chain glinting on his chest, his dad's last gift. Scratched from a factory explosion nobody explained. He's here for trespassing, a flimsy charge from stepping on a white neighbor's lawn. Lieutenant Curtis Drayton, all badge and venom, locks eyes with him. Fancy chain for a punk, he snarls, then rips it off, clasp shattering. Khalil lunges, stopped by bailiffs. The judge enters, Amara Brooks, his mum. Drayton pales. What's she hiding? The room holds its breath. Before we dive into this story, let us know where you're watching from. If you stand for justice shining through darkness, hit like and subscribe because tomorrow's episode is one you won't want to miss. What secrets will unravel next? Khalil Brooks sat rigid in the Dunhill courthouse, his neck still raw where the silver chain had been torn away, the absence of its familiar weight like a missing pulse. His heart slammed against his ribs, each beat louder than the last, as Lieutenant Curtis Drayton stood across the room, his angular frame cutting a shadow against the scuffed oak paneling. Drayton's fingers toyed with the chain's broken clasp in his pocket, his lips curling into a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. He tossed a glance at the gallery, a sparse crowd of locals in faded jackets and skeptical frowns, their whispers buzzing like static. Some craned their necks, curious about the black kid who dared lunge at a cop. Others looked away as if Khalil's defiance was a stain they didn't want to touch. The air was thick, humid despite the rattling air conditioner, and smelled faintly of wax and regret. Khalil's eyes flicked to the bench where his mother, Judge Amara Brooks, adjusted her glasses, her face a mask of granite. Her robe swallowed her slim frame, but her presence filled the room, a quiet force that made even the bailiff stand straighter. She hadn't looked at him since entering, not once, and that silence gnawed at him worse than Drayton's sneer. Was she ashamed, angry, or was it something else, something tied to the way her jaw tightened when Drayton's name was called? Khalil gripped the edge of his chair, splinters biting his palms, willing her to speak, to do something about the theft that still burned in his chest. The hearing began, a trespassing charge so thin it felt like a bad joke. Khalil had stepped on a neighbor's lawn chasing a stray ball, and now here he was, 16, labeled a delinquent. His public defender, a wiry man with a tie too short for his frame, fumbled through papers, muttering about witnesses. Amara's voice cut through, sharp as a blade. "State your case, counselor. This docket's full." The prosecutor, a balding man with sweat stains blooming under his armpits, stood, his words tripping over themselves. He claimed Khalil had threatened property, but offered no proof beyond a blurry photo of a trampled flower bed. Khalil's defender countered, voice shaky but clear, "No damage, no intent." Amara's pen scratched across her notes, her eyes scanning the room, never landing on her son. Khalil's pulse slowed, hope flickering. This was it. She'd shut it down. She had to. And then she did. "Case dismissed," she said, her tone flat, final. "No evidence supports the charge." The gavel cracked, a sound like a bone snapping, and the gallery exhaled, some nodding, others rolling their eyes. Khalil's shoulders sagged, his breath rushing out. He was free. The word tasted sweet, like the first sip of water after a long run. He stood, legs unsteady, ready to bolt from this concrete cage, to leave Drayton's smirk behind. But as he turned, he caught Drayton lingering near the exit, whispering to a bailiff, his hand still in his pocket, cradling the stolen chain. The lieutenant's eyes met Khalil's, narrow and cold, promising something worse than a lost trinket. Amara's voice rang out again, stopping Khalil mid-step. "Lieutenant Drayton, approach the bench." The room stilled, the gallery leaning forward like vultures sensing blood. Drayton sauntered up, his boots clicking on the tile, every step oozing confidence. "Yes, Your Honor," he said, voice smooth as oil. Amara's gaze pinned him, unblinking. "You removed an item from the defendant in open court. Where is it?" Khalil's chest tightened. She'd seen it, she knew. Drayton didn't flinch. "Lost in evidence, ma'am. Happens sometimes. I'll file a report." His tone was casual, almost bored, but his fingers twitched, betraying a crack in his armor. Amara's lips thinned. "See that you do by end of day." She waved him off, her eyes flicking to Khalil for the briefest moment, a flash of something, regret, maybe, or resolve, before she turned to the next case. Khalil stumbled out, the dismissal papers crumpled in his fist, his neck bare and wrong. Free, but not whole. The chain wasn't just metal, it was his dad, Marcus, the mechanic who'd laughed like thunder and died in a factory blast nobody called murder. Khalil had worn it since he was 11. Through fights, exams, nightmares, the pendant scratches a map of survival. Now it was gone, swallowed by Drayton's spite, and Amara hadn't stopped it, not really. Her order felt hollow, a bandage on a broken bone. He pushed through the courthouse doors, the Alabama sun slapping his face, heat rising from the cracked pavement in waves. He needed to get home to Silas to figure out what came next. The Brooks house sat on a sagging street in Dunhill's West End, a 2-story clapboard with peeling blue paint and a porch that creaked under memory. Khalil burst in, the screen door slamming, and found his grandfather, Silas, in the living room polishing a brass lamp with hands gnarled as oak roots. At 70, Silas carried his years like a badge, his limp from a bus accident no match for his pride. His eyes, sharp behind bifocals, locked on Khalil's bare neck. "They took it, didn't they?" he said, voice low, rough with knowing. Khalil nodded, throat tight. "Drayton, right in court, Mum saw, but—" He trailed off, the words too heavy. Silas set the lamp down, hard. Same old Dunhill, always a badge stealing what's ours. His gaze drifted to a photo on the mantel. Marcus grinning, toolbox in hand, then back to Khalil. "You ain't done yet, boy. Don't you dare be." Khalil sank onto the couch, the springs groaning, his mind replaying Drayton's smirk, the gallery's whispers. He wanted to scream, to run back and demand the chain, but Silas's words rooted him. Not done. He pulled out his phone, texting. His cousin Nia, 17, who lived 3 blocks over and saw the world through code and courage. She'd know what to do. Nia arrived in minutes, her braids swinging, laptop tucked under her arm like a weapon. "Heard about court," she said, dropping onto the floor, her fingers already flying across keys. "Let's hit back." Khalil leaned in, pulse quickening, as Nia hacked into the courthouse's security feed, pulling grainy footage from the hallway camera. There it was, Drayton, clear as sin, slipping the chain to a deputy, a wiry man with a buzz cut, their hands brushing like thieves in a deal. The deputy pocketed it and vanished down a side hall. Khalil's jaw clenched, the screen's glow burning his eyes. Proof. "Post it," he said, voice steady for the first time all day. Nia grinned, uploading the clip to every platform she could hit, tagging Drayton's name in bold. "Let's see him squirm." Khalil watched the view count tick up, a spark of power flaring in his chest. He'd expose Drayton, make Dunhill see. He paced the room, the hardwood cool under his socks, planning his next move. Find that deputy, track the chain. He'd confront them, demand it back, show Amara he wasn't just her kid, he was Marcus's son. But as dusk painted the sky orange, tires screeched outside, shattering the quiet. Red and blue lights pulsed through the curtains, and heavy boots thumped up the porch. Khalil froze, Nia slamming her laptop shut. Silas stood, cane in hand, as the front door rattled under a fist. "Dunhill PD, open up! We got a warrant!" a voice barked. Khalil's stomach dropped. Drayton. The door burst open before Silas could move, 5 cops storming in, their flashlights slicing the dim room. They wore riot vests, faces hard, one with a scar splitting his brow. "On the floor!" Scarface shouted, shoving Khalil against the wall, his cheek scraping plaster. Nia yelled, "You can't do this!" But another cop grabbed her arm, twisting until she hissed. Silas stepped forward, cane tapping, voice like gravel. "What's the charge?" Scarface smirked, holding up a crumpled warrant. "Weapons tip, anonymous." Khalil's mind raced. No guns, no knives, nothing but Silas's old toolbox in the shed. The cops tore through the house, flipping cushions, smashing plates, ripping Marcus's photo from the mantel. Glass crunched under their boots, the frame splitting. Khalil's chest burned. They were destroying his dad again. He caught Scarface's eye, saw the glint of amusement, and then the words came, low and deliberate. "Drayton says hi." Khalil's blood turned to ice. This wasn't random. This was revenge. Drayton's fist swinging from the courthouse to their home. Silas argued, quoting rights, but Scarface laughed, snapping cuffs on his wrists. "Resisting arrest, old man." Khalil lunged. "He didn't do nothing." But a baton pressed his spine, pinning him. Silas's eyes met his, calm despite the chaos. "Stay strong, Khalil." They dragged him out, his cane clattering to the porch, the squad car's door slamming like a coffin lid. Nia shook beside Khalil, her laptop clutched tight as the cops filed out, leaving the house gutted. Drawers dumped, curtains torn. Marcus's toolbox pried open, its wrenches scattered like bones. The lead cop paused at the door, tossing a final jab. "Tell your judge mama to watch herself." The lights faded, engines roaring into the night, and Khalil stood in the wreckage, fists trembling, Drayton's message clear. "You push, I break." He sank to the floor, glass biting his knees, the chain's absence a scream in his head. Amara wasn't home. She'd stayed late at court, dodging calls, and Khalil wondered if she knew if she'd warned him. Nia knelt beside him, her voice fierce. "We got the footage. He's not untouchable." But Khalil's eyes fixed on Silas's cane alone on the porch, and Drayton's smirk flashed in his mind, sharper than ever. The dismissal was nothing, a scrap of paper against a man who'd burn their world to keep control. Khalil touched his bare neck, the skin still. "I tender," and swore he'd get the chain back no matter what Dunhill threw next. Khalil Brooks woke to the ache of a bare neck, the ghost of his father's silver chain still pressing against his skin, though it was long gone, stolen by Lieutenant Curtis Drayton's cruel hand. The Dunhill sun sliced through cracked blinds, painting the living room in stripes of golden shadow, but the house felt like a wound. Couches slashed, Marcus's photo shattered, Silas's cane still lying on the porch where cops had dragged him away. Khalil's sneakers crunched on glass as he paced, his phone buzzing with Nia's texts. "Bail's set. Need $2,000. His chest tightened. Silas, 70, cuffed like a thief for daring to speak, all because Drayton's ego bled from a courtroom. Loss. Khalil's victory, that flimsy, trespassing dismissal tasted like ash now, burned away by the raid that gutted their home. He glanced at the clock, 7:30. Amara hadn't come back from court, her phone off, her silence louder than the sirens that had torn their night apart. He grabbed his backpack, stuffing in a water bottle and Silas's spare glasses, the lenses scratched but precious. The bail office was a mile away, a squat brick box by the jail, and Khalil ran, humidity sticking his shirt to his ribs. Dunhill's West End woke slowly. Kids pedaling bikes, a barber sweeping his stoop, but every face felt like a judge, their eyes lingering on Khalil, the kid whose house got hit. He kept his head down, the pavement blurring under his feet, until he reached the counter, slamming down crumpled bills from his summer job at the tire shop. The clerk, a woman with a pinched mouth, counted twice, her gaze flicking to his torn jeans. "Brooks, huh?" she muttered, stamping the release. Khalil nodded, jaw tight, and waited in the jail's lobby, its air sour with bleach and despair. Silas emerged an hour later, limping worse than usual, his fedora gone, shirt wrinkled from a night in a cell. His eyes found Khalil's, bright, with fury but steady as stone. "You all right, boy?" he asked, voice hoarse. Khalil hugged him, quick and fierce, feeling the old man's ribs through his jacket. "I'm good, you?" Silas snorted, leaning on Khalil's arm. "Been through worse, ain't my first cage." They shuffled home, Silas's steps slow, the street buzzing with stares, neighbors peeking from porches, a dog barking sharp and lone. Khalil's gut churned. This was Drayton's doing, a message carved in broken glass and handcuffs. "Push me, and I'll bury your blood." Inside, the house was a graveyard, drawers gutted, Marcus's toolbox spilled, a single wrench glinting, like a fallen star. Silas sank into a chair, rubbing his wrist where cuffs had bitten. "They didn't find nothing," he said, a grim smile cracking his face. "Drayton's slipping." Khalil's lips twitched. Silas was right. The raid had failed. No drugs, no weapons, just a family left standing. He felt a spark, fragile but real. They'd beaten this round. He grabbed a broom, sweeping glass into piles, each clink a small defiance. Silas watched, nodding. "Keep that fire, Khalil. You'll need it." Naya burst through the door, her laptop glowing, eyes wild with news. "Check this," she said, spinning the screen. The courthouse footage, Drayton passing the chain to his buzz-cut deputy, had blown up online, 3,000 views and climbing. Comments poured in. "That's Dunhill PD for you, stealing in broad daylight." Khalil's breath caught. Chain Snatcher was trending, Drayton's name a curse across feeds. Nia grinned, scrolling. Got retweets from Atlanta, even Birmingham. Khalil leaned closer, the grainy clip looping. Drayton's hand, the chains. Glint, the deputy's nod, proof undeniable, spreading faster than Dunhill's lies. His pulse raced. He'd done this, turned Drayton's theft into a spotlight. By noon, a news van parked across the street, its antenna stabbing the sky. A reporter, young, with a mic clipped to her blazer, knocked, her voice clipped but eager. "Khalil Brooks? I'm with Channel 6. That video's got people talking. Care to comment?" Khalil hesitated, Silas's warning glance heavy, but Nia nudged him. "Tell 'em." He stepped onto the porch, the camera's red light blinking, and spoke, voice low but clear. "Drayton took my dad's chain. In court. He thought nobody'd care." The reporter's eyes widened, scribbling fast. "And the raid?" Khalil's throat tightened. "They hit us 'cause we pushed back." She nodded, promising a story. By 5. The piece aired at 6, cutting through Dunhill's humid dusk. Khalil, Silas and Nia crowded around their ancient TV, static, fizzing. The anchor's voice was grave. "Lieutenant Curtis Drayton, caught on tape removing a teen's property, faces questions tonight. Sources call his actions reckless, possibly illegal." Khalil's face flashed, a school photo, not his mugshot, beside the hashtag Chain Snatcher. Silas chuckled, rare and deep. "Boy, you shook 'em." Khalil grinned, chest swelling. The world was watching. Drayton squirming under lights he couldn't dodge. He imagined the chain back around his neck, its scratches catching sun, Amara's smile when she saw him win. He felt unstoppable, like Marcus's fire burned in him, fierce and whole. But as night fell, the spark dimmed. Khalil scrolled his phone, the video's views now 10,000. But new posts caught his eye, a blog, Dunhill Truth, screaming in bold, "Judge's son linked to stolen heirloom." His stomach dropped. The article claimed Khalil swiped the chain from a hero cop's widow, complete with a grainy photo of the pendant captioned "Recovered Loot." Lies slick and venomous spread faster than Nia's clip. Comments piled up. Thief got what he deserved, Brooks' kid's trouble. Khalil's hands shook. He recognized the style, Drayton's fingerprints all over it. His school's website pinged. Khalil Brooks suspended pending review. The principal's note cited community concerns, no appeal all. He slammed the phone down, glass crunching under his heel. Silas looked up, eyes narrowing. "What now?" Khalil showed him the article, voice breaking. "They're flipping it, making me the criminal." Naya's fingers flew, tracing the blog's IP, but her face fell. "It's masked. Drayton's got pros." Khalil paced, the room shrinking, walls closing like a trap. Neighbors' voices drifted through the window. Miss Clara, who'd baked him cookies last Christmas, muttering, "Didn't think he was that type." Mr. Tate, the barber, shutting his blinds with a frown. Dunhill was turning, Drayton's, poison seeping deep. Amara's key rattled in the lock, her silhouette weary against the porch light. She stepped in, suit creased, eyes hollow. Khalil rushed to her, words spilling. "Mom, they're lying about me, online, at school." She held up a hand, stopping him, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know." Her briefcase hit the floor, heavy as defeat. "I got a summons, Judicial Review Board, tomorrow." Khalil blinked, dread pooling. "For what?" Amara's lips pressed thin. "They say I'm biased. Because of you." Silas cursed under his breath, cane tapping hard. Khalil's mind spun. Drayton wasn't just after him. He was clawing at Amara, her bench, her name. The air grew heavier, the house's wounds sharper. In the dark. Khalil's eyes caught Marcus's broken frame, his dad's grin half torn. Drayton hadn't just stolen metal, he'd cracked their world, and now he was rewriting Khalil's name into a lie. A sharp crack split the silence. A brick smashed through the living room window, glass spraying like shrapnel. Khalil dove, shielding Nia, his pulse a drum in his ears. Silas grabbed his cane, hobbling to the door, but the street was empty, only tail-lights fading. Khalil crawled to the brick, its weight cold in his hand, a note taped tight. "Thieves burn." The words weren't just a threat. They were Drayton's voice laughing from the shadows. Khalil stood, brick trembling in his grip, the note's ink smearing under his thumb. Nia's laptop glowed, the article's lies still trending. Ashi Saik chain snatcher. Drowned by the first thief Brooks. Amara's face was stone, but her hands shook as she swept glass, her summons looming like a noose. Silas muttered, "He's playing dirty now." Khalil's chest burned, not just anger, but something hotter, sharper. Drayton thought he'd won, thought a blog and a brick could break them. But Khalil wasn't Marcus, wasn't Silas, wasn't Amara. He was something new forged in this fight, and he'd make Dunhill see the truth, no matter how deep Drayton's claws sank. Drop a comment with number 1 if you're raging at Drayton's. Lies, twisting Khalil's fight into a crime. Hit like if you're rooting for this kid to rise, and subscribe for the next chapter of his battle. Can you stand seeing justice flipped upside down? Share your thoughts below. What would you do against a town turning cold? Khalil's spark is flickering, but is it gone? Stay tuned to find out. Khalil Brooks stood in the wreckage of his living room, the brick's note, "Thieves burn," still clenched in his fist, its ink smudged like blood under his thumb. The Dunhill dawn was grey, heavy with humidity that clung to his skin, but the chill inside him came from deeper, from the article's lies branding him a thief, from neighbors' eyes turning cold, from Amara's summons to a judicial review that smelled of Lieutenant Curtis Drayton's revenge. His school suspension stung like a fresh cut, the principal's email, community concerns, looping in his head. No appeal, no discussion, just Khalil, 16, cast out for a chain he'd never stolen. His dad's scratched pendant, now a weapon, in Drayton's hands. The house creaked around him, glass shards glinting under the bulb's flicker, Marcus's broken photo staring from the floor, half its grin lost to the raid. Amara swept the last of the window's debris, her suit jacket, creased, her face a fortress despite the tremor in her hands. She hadn't spoken since the brick, her silence louder than Silas's curses or Nia's frantic typing chasing the blog's source. Khalil wanted to ask about Court, about Drayton, about why she hadn't fought harder for the chain, but her eyes, red-rimmed and distant, stopped him. She was Judge Amara Brooks, Dunhill's first black woman on the bench, but right now she was just his mom, carrying a weight he couldn't name. Silas sat at the kitchen table, nursing a bruised wrist, his 70 years etched deeper by the jail's cold. "He's coming for us all," he muttered, voice like gravel. Khalil nodded, the brick's threat burning his pocket. Drayton wasn't done. Janet Chain Snatcher had stung him, and now he was clawing back. Khalil grabbed his phone, the article's lies. Judge's son stole cop's heirloom, still trending, 10,000 likes poisoning Dunhill's feeds. His suspension barred him from class, but not from fighting. He set up Nia's old webcam, its lens scratched but sharp, and hit record, the living room's chaos his backdrop. "This is Khalil Brooks," he said, voice cracking at first. Then, steadying, "Drayton took my dad's chain in court, called me a punk. Now he's saying I stole it. Look around. This is what he does when you call him out." He panned to the slashed couch, the splintered frame, his hands shaking but sure. "My dad died for this town, and Drayton's spitting on him. I'm not a thief. He is." He uploaded it to every platform, heart pounding. The video's thumbnail, his own face, eyes fierce like Marcus's in that lost photo. By noon, the clip hit 10,000 views, comments flooding. "Keep fighting, kid. Drayton's a snake." Khalil's chest lifted, a grin breaking through. Nia whooped, tracking shares from Mobile to Montgomery. "You're viral, cousin." Silas raised an eyebrow, skeptical but proud. "Stirring the pot, huh?" Khalil nodded, imagining Drayton's face, that slick smirk crumbling. A text pinged, an unknown number. I'm a lawyer. Saw your video. Want to sue Drayton? Free consult. Khalil's pulse raced. A real chance, not just noise but action, he replied, setting a meeting for tomorrow, his mind spinning with visions of court Drayton exposed, the chain back where it belonged. He felt the tide turning, Dunhill waking, his dad's fire roaring in him, but the tide was a lie. Khalil headed to the corner store for Silas's meds, the street buzzing with spring heat, kids kicking a ball, a radio blasting hip-hop. He kept his hoodie up, avoiding stares, the article's shadow dogging him. A police cruiser rolled by, slow, its driver hidden behind tinted glass. Khalil's stomach knotted, but he kept walking, the store's bell jangling as he stepped in. He was grabbing ibuprofen when tires screeched outside, lights flashing red and blue. Officer Tate, Drayton's deputy from court, the buzzcut who'd taken the chain, burst in, badge gleaming. "Brooks," he barked, hand on his holster. Khalil froze, bottle slipping, plastic clattering. "What did I do?" Tate's eyes were hard, no smirk, just purpose. "Step outside." Khalil complied, heart hammering, the street now a stage. Neighbors, gawking, phones out. Tate spun him against the cruiser, rough, patting him down. "Got a tip," he muttered, loud enough for the crowd. "Armed and dangerous." Khalil's voice cracked. "I'm not—" Tate cut him off, yanking his backpack open. His hand plunged in, then pulled out a switchblade, its blade glinting, handle black as coal. Khalil's breath stopped. "That's not mine!" Tate's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Sure, kid," the crowd murmured, some backing away, others nodding like they'd known all along. Khalil's mind screamed, planted, Drayton's move, clean and cruel. Tate cuffed him, metal biting his wrists, and shoved him into the cruiser's back seat, the door slamming like a trap. The precinct was a blur of fluorescent lights and sour coffee, Khalil's cuffs chafing as Tate booked him. "Assault with a deadly weapon," the charge read, the knife now bagged, its lie sealed. Khalil sat in a holding cell, concrete cold under his thighs, the bars rusted but unyielding. Inmates paced nearby, their taunts sharp. "Judge's boy, huh? Gonna cry for mummy." Khalil's fists clenched, his neck bare, the chain's absence a knife of its own. A guard, squat with a scar over his eye, leaned close, breath stale. "Drayton says your mum's next." Khalil's blood ran cold, the words a punch to his gut. Amara. Her review was today, her bench on the line, and Drayton was circling, his claws sharper than ever. He replayed the store. Tate's hands, the knife's impossible weight. Planted, no question, but how to prove it? His video was out there, 10,000 strong, but Dunhill didn't care. Not the cops, not the crowd, not the clerk who'd watched him cuffed without a word. He thought of Silas, home alone. Near refreshing feeds, Amara facing a board that had smelled Drayton's stink. The cell's air grew thin, his chest tight, rage and fear braiding together. He wasn't just fighting for the chain now. It was his. Name, his family, his dad's ghost, all under Drayton's boot. Hours crawled, the guard's words echoing. "Mom's next." Khalil's lawyer, a pro bono woman with tired eyes, arrived, promising a hearing. "They've got nothing but the knife," she said, but her voice wavered. Khalil nodded, hollow. Nothing but a lie, and in Dunhill, lies were enough. He was bailed out by evening, Nia's savings drained and stepped into twilight, the precinct's shadow long across the lot. Silas waited, cane tapping, face carved with worry. "You good?" Khalil shrugged, throat too tight to speak. They drove home, the radio off, Dunhill's streets quiet but alive with threat. Amara was at the judicial review, her phone still dark, no word on her fate. Khalil checked feeds. His video held strong, but the article's lies were louder, 20,000 likes now, comments uglier, lock him up. "Judge should quit." He slammed the phone down, Silas's hand steadying his shoulder. "Keep your eyes up," he said. Khalil tried, but the world felt heavier, Drayton's shadow everywhere. They pulled into their street. The houses broken, window boarded, a new horror waiting on the porch. Their dog Rusty lay still, fur matted with blood, a bullet hole clean through his skull. Khalil's knees buckled, A scream trapped in his chest. Silas gripped his cane, knuckles white, voice shaking. That bastard! Khalil knelt, Rusty's collar cold in his hand, the tags jingle, a knife to his heart. Rusty, who'd slept, at his feet chased balls till he panted, was gone. Another piece of home stolen. The article, the knife, now this. Drayton's message was clear: no sanctuary, no mercy. Khalil's eyes burned, not with tears but fury, the kind that could light fires. Silas pulled him up, voice low. He wants you broken. Don't give it. To him. Khalil nodded, Rusty's blood on his fingers, the chain's absence screaming louder than ever. Amara's review was hours away, her career dangling, and Drayton was playing executioner. He carried Rusty to the backyard, digging a grave under the oak, each shovelful a vow. The knife wasn't his, the chain wasn't stolen, and he wasn't done. Drayton thought a dead dog and a frame-up would silence him, but Khalil felt Marcus's pulse in him, steady, unyielding. He'd sue, expose, fight, no matter how Dunhill. Twisted his name. The hole deepened, dirt piling, and Khalil's resolve hardened with it. Drayton's next move was coming. He'd promised Amara's fall, and Khalil would be ready, even if it cost him everything. Khalil Brooks knelt in the backyard dirt, Rusty's grave packed tight under the oak, the shovel's handle still warm in his palms. The Dunhill night was thick, cicadas screaming, but the silence inside him was louder, carved by the bullet hole. In his dog's skull, Lieutenant Curtis Drayton's latest knife. His neck burned where the silver chain should have hung, its pendant stolen in court, now a ghost haunting his every step. The article's lies, calling him a thief, had cost him school. The planted knife had cost him freedom. Rusty's blood had cost him peace. Amara's judicial review loomed at dawn, her bench dangling by Drayton's strings, and Khalil, 16, felt the world closing like a fist. He stood, wiping dirt on his jeans, the house's boarded window staring back, a scar from the brick that had promised fire. Inside, Silas slumped in a chair, his 70-year face grey, wrist still bruised from cuffs. He'd buried Rusty with Khalil, his cane digging earth, but now he was quiet, eyes fixed on Marcus's shattered photo, its grin half gone. Nia sat cross-legged on the floor, her laptop's glow cutting the dark, her braids swinging as she typed. "Nothing on Mom," she said, voice tight. Amara hadn't called, her phone dead since the review summons. Khalil's stomach twisted. Drayton's guard had whispered, "She's next," and the words clung like damp rot. He paced, sneakers squeaking on hardwood, the raided house creaking with ghosts, slashed cushions, spilled wrenches. His dad's toolbox now a coffin for broken things. Khalil's phone buzzed, a lawyer's reply. "Hearing tomorrow, knife's fishy." Hope flickered. He'd walked free from the assault charge, the blade exposed as Tate's plant, thanks to Amara's pro bono friend. The lawyer's email laid it out. No prints, no witness, just a cop's word against a black kid's. Khalil exhaled, shaky but sure, the cell's taunts, judge's boy, fading. He was out, back with Silas near the fight. Drayton had slipped, his frame-up crumbling, and Khalil clung to that, a lifeline in Dunhill's quicksand. He touched his bare neck, swearing he'd get the chain, Marcus's scratched pendant. No, matter how deep Drayton buried it. Nia's screen flashed, pulling Khalil close. "Got something," she said, her voice sharp with discovery. She'd cracked Dunhill PD's internal logs, a digital maze of deleted emails and coded memos. Her fingers danced, unearthing Drayton's dirt, payoffs to 2 judges, cash wired. Through a shell account, dates matching dropped cases against white dealers. "He's bought the bench," Nia whispered, eyes wide. Khalil's pulse surged. This was dynamite, proof Drayton wasn't just a bully but a kingpin, rigging Dunhill's scales. He grinned, fierce. "We've got him." Nia nodded, saving the files to a USB, its plastic scratched like their hope. Fragile. But real Khalil's mind raced. Expose Drayton, save Amara, reclaim the chain. He knew Tate, Drayton's buzz-cut deputy, held the pendant, caught on Nia's courthouse clip. Tate had planted the knife, followed orders, but his eyes in the store had flickered, a crack in his loyalty. Khalil grabbed his bike, the frame rusted, but fast and pedaled to Tate's patrol route. A quiet stretch by the rail yard, its tracks gleaming under sodium lights. The air smelled of oil and heat, Dunhill's pulse low and mean. Tate's cruiser idled, windows down, radio crackling. Khalil approached, heart hammering, voice steady. "I know you've got my chain." Tate's head snapped up, hand twitching. To his gun, but he froze, eyes darting. Khalil pressed. "Drayton's sinking, you don't have to." Tate's jaw worked, silent. Then he reached into his glove box, pulling a dented silver pendant, its scratches catching moonlight. "Take it," he muttered, voice low. "And run." Khalil's fingers closed around it, the metal warm. Marcus's, ghost alive in his palm. He slipped it over his neck, the pendant heavy, incomplete without its clasp, but enough to spark fire. Tate's eyes held guilt, fear, a man caught in Drayton's web, but slipping free. Khalil backed away, bike wobbling, victory singing in his veins. He'd cracked Tate, got proof, part of his dad back. Dunhill's streets blurred as he rode home, the pendant bouncing, a beacon against his chest. He imagined Amara's face, Silas's nod, Nia's cheer. Drayton couldn't touch this. Not now. He was unstoppable, a flame no badge could snuff. But flames draw hunters. Khalil reached the house, chaining his bike, the night too still, stars hidden by clouds. He stepped inside, pendant gleaming, ready to show Nia when tires roared, a dozen SUVs screaming down the block. Red and blue lights flooded the windows, SWAT vests glinting, rifles raised. Khalil froze, Nia yelling, "What the—" as Boots smashed the door, wood splintering. "Dunhill PD, down!" A masked officer bellowed, laser darts dancing on Khalil's chest. The pendant burned against his skin, Tate's gift a trap or a fluke, but no time to think. They weren't here for drugs or knives. Drayton had upped the game. "Khalil Brooks," another shouted. "Armed suspect, move and you're done." Silas lunged, cane swinging, but a baton cracked his arm, dropping him with a groan. Khalil dove for Nia, pulling her behind the couch, glass crunching under their knees. The SWAT team tore through, flashlights blinding, voices barking lies. "Got a tip. Gang leader, armed to the teeth." Khalil's mind screamed. No guns, no gang, just Drayton's voice in that guard's threat. She's next. This was for the pendant, the files, Amara's bench. A shot rang out, not at him, but close. Nia gasping, blood seeping from her shoulder. A graze, but enough to turn Khalil's rage to ice. He held her, whispering, "Stay with me," as her eyes fluttered, pain carving her face. Silas wheezed, clutching, his chest, his heart racing from years of strain. Khalil shouted, "He needs a doctor!" But a boot pinned his back, cold metal brushing his spine. The team ripped the house apart. Again, mattresses split, Marcus's toolbox smashed, the USB untouched in Nia's pocket. Their last hope. A radio crackled, a voice cutting through, Drayton's, calm, venomous. "Secure the kid. Judge learns respect tonight." Khalil's blood roared. He'd been played. Tate's guilt a lure or a lie. The pendant a beacon for this raid. Nia's. Breath hitched, her hand squeezing his, and Silas's gasps slowed, too slow. Amara's fate hit harder than bullets. A TV blared in the neighbor's yard, news breaking. Judge Amara Brooks suspended pending ethics probe. Alleged bias in son's case. Khalil's heart sank. She'd lost her bench, her name, because he'd pushed, because he'd taken the pendant. The SWAT leader, face masked, yanked Khalil up, cuffs snapping tight. "You're lucky it's not worse," he growled, shoving him toward the door. Khalil stumbled, Nia's blood on his hands, Silas's pulse fading, the pendant swinging, dented, but defiant. He'd thought he'd won. Freedom, proof, Marcus's ghost, but Drayton had burned it all, his claws deeper than Khalil's fire. They hauled him to a van, Silas carried out, Nia staggering, medics, late and slow. The street watched, faces hidden, Dunhill's silence a blade. Khalil's eyes caught the pendant, its scratches screaming. Marcus hadn't quit, and neither would he. But as the van's door slammed, a new sound cut through, a hacked radio. Spitting static, then Drayton's voice, low, mocking. "Run, boy, nowhere's safe." Khalil's spine stiffened, the pendant a coal in his chest. He'd fight, but Drayton's next move was coming, a storm bigger than any raid, And Amara, where was she? Drop a comment with number 1 if you're stunned by Drayton's cruelty, turning Khalil's spark into a trap. Hit like if you believe this kid's fight isn't over, and subscribe to see how he rises from this wreckage. Can you feel the weight of a town's betrayal? Share your thoughts below. Would you keep swinging against a system this rotten? Khalil's down, but is his fire out? Stay locked in for what's next. Khalil Brooks crouched in the attic of his cousin Tasha's house, the air stale with dust and heat, his chest tight from the weight of the dented silver pendant swinging against his skin. Dunhill's night pressed against the tiny window. Stars, smothered by clouds, but the chaos below, SWAT lights fading, Nia's blood still wet on his hands, burned brighter than any sky. The church raid had shattered everything. Nia's shoulder grazed by a bullet, Silas gasping in a hospital bed, Amara's judgeship stripped by a rigged ethics probe. Lieutenant Curtis Drayton's voice crackling through that hacked radio. Run. Boy echoed in Khalil's skull, a taunt that promised more pain. He was 16, chainless, but for the pendant Tate had slipped him, and Dunhill was a trap, its streets alive with Drayton's eyes. Tasha's house, a sagging duplex 3 miles. From Khalil's was no sanctuary. Its peeling wallpaper and creaking stairs screamed temporary, but it was all he had. Nia sat on a crate, her arm bandaged, wincing as she typed on a borrowed tablet, her laptop lost to the raid's wreckage. Silas is stable, she said, voice raw. Heart's weak, but he's fighting. Khalil nodded, his throat too tight to speak, the pendant's scratches catching his thumb as he rubbed it. Marcus's ghost lived in that metal, a mechanic killed in a factory blast nobody dared call sabotage, and now it was Khalil's anchor, the only piece of his dad Drayton hadn't crushed. Amara was gone, suspended, unreachable, her phone dead, and Khalil's fight felt like shouting into a void. He knelt beside Nia, her screen glowing with scraps of Drayton's payoffs, salvaged from the USB before the church fell. We can't stop, he said, voice low but fierce. He's got judges, cops, everything. We leak this, he's done. Nia's eyes met his, tired but unyielding. Risky. He's hunting us. Khalil's jaw set. Drayton had burned his home, killed Rusty, shot Nia, and still held the chain's clasp, a trophy of his hate. Risk was all they had left. Nia nodded, uploading the files to a blogger, Truth Bammer, known for exposing small-town rot. Give it an hour, she said, hitting send. Khalil exhaled, the pendant warm against his chest, hope a fragile spark in Dunhill's dark. An hour later the post dropped, raw and unfiltered. Dunhill cop buys justice. Bank records exposed Lutian. Drayton. Nia's tablet pinged. 5,000 views, then 10,000 comments raging. He's a cancer. Brooks' kid was right. Khalil's pulse surged, a grin breaking through. Protests erupted downtown, grainy live streams showing signs. Chain snatcher must fall. And voices chanting Khalil's name. A news chopper buzzed overhead, its spotlight slicing Tasha's roof, and Khalil dared to dream. Drayton cornered, the chain returned, Amara's bench restored. He clutched the pendant, its dents a map of his fight, and felt Marcus's fire steady, unquenched. We did it, he whispered, Nia's nod mirroring his spark. But Dunhill didn't forgive defiance. Tasha burst upstairs, her braids swinging, voice sharp. Get out, now! Khalil blinked, dread pooling. What? She shoved her phone at him. A text from an unknown number. Harboring fugitives? Shop burns. Tasha's auto shop, her life's blood, sat a block away, and Drayton's. Reach was long. Khalil grabbed Nia, her tablet clutched tight, and they bolted downstairs, Tasha's curses chasing them. The street was quiet, too quiet, until a glow flickered ahead. Orange, hungry, wrong. Khalil's stomach dropped. Tasha's shop was ablaze. Flames licking the sky, tires popping like gunfire. Smoke choked his lungs as he ran closer, Nia coughing beside him, her bandage dark with sweat. The shop's windows exploded, glass raining, and Khalil saw it, his bike, chained out front, melting. In the heat, a message carved in fire. Drayton's voice from the radio rang again. Nowhere safe, and this was proof, a torch for their leak. Fire trucks wailed, too late, as neighbors gathered, their faces lit by the blaze, some whispering Khalil's name, others turning away. Nia yanked him back, her voice hoarse. "We're trapped!" The flames roared higher, trapping them in the shop's alley, heat searing Khalil's skin. He shielded Nia, scanning for escape, when a figure loomed, Drayton's deputy, not Tate, but a hulking man with a scar across his cheek, grinning through the smoke. "Told you to run," he growled, blocking the exit. Khalil's mind raced, the pendant scalding his chest. He grabbed a pipe from the ground, its metal warm, and swung, catching the deputy's knee. The man stumbled, cursing, and Khalil pulled Nia through a gap, flames licking their heels. They burst into the next street, lungs burning, but the deputy's radio crackled. "They're out, find 'em!" Khalil's hope shattered, the protest's roar now a distant hum. He checked Nia's tablet. Smashed in the chaos, the USB gone, their evidence ash. Drayton had burned their proof, their refuge, and Khalil's spark flickered, weak against this inferno. They staggered to a park, hiding in a storm drain, its concrete cold and damp. Khalil's phone buzzed. A news alert. Judge Brooks's home seized. Tax fraud alleged. Amara, already suspended, was now homeless, Drayton's bureaucratic knife twisting deeper. Khalil's fists clenched, the pendant digging into his palm, its dents a scream. Marcus wouldn't fold, and neither could he. But sirens wailed closer, and boots crunched gravel above. Drayton's vigilantes, not cops but worse, roamed Dunhill's edges, their voices sharp with slurs. "Where's the thief?" A gunshot cracked, bullet sparking off the drain's rim, and Khalil pulled Nia deeper, her breath shallow, her wounds seeping again. They crawled through muck, emerging in a vacant lot, weeds tangling their feet. Khalil's legs shook, the fire's heat still clinging, Nia's weight heavy on his arm. The vigilantes' lights swept closer, truck engines growling, and Khalil's heart pounded. Drayton's mob, unleashed by the leak's sting, wanted blood. A stranger's hand grabbed them, pulling them behind a dumpster, its steel rusted but solid. An old man, face lined like cracked earth, whispered, "Stay low." His eyes held no pity, only truth. Drayton owns this town, always has. Khalil's breath hitched, the pendant his only anchor, its weight grounding him as tires screeched past. The stranger vanished, leaving Khalil and Nia alone, the lot's silence a lie. Khalil checked his phone. Protests still raged, but news spun the fire. Brooks linked to arson. His name again twisted by Drayton's pen, the pendant now a brand. Nia's eyes fluttered, her bandage soaked, and Khalil tore his shirt, tying it tighter, his hands shaking. "We're not done," he said, more to himself than her. The vigilantes circled, their shouts louder, bullets pinging nearby. Khalil clutched the pendant, its scratches a vow. Drayton had burned his fight, his proof, his kin, but not his will. He'd run, hide, strike again, even if Dunhill's jaws snapped shut. They slipped through shadows, Nia leaning hard, the lot giving. Way to a canal, its water black and still. Khalil's mind flashed to Marcus, his dad's laugh, his toolbox, his death. Drayton's fire couldn't touch that. But as they crouched, a new sound rose, dogs barking, chains rattling, Drayton's mob closing. The pendant gleamed, lone, and dented, all Khalil had left. He'd leaked the truth, sparked a city, but Drayton's answer was flame and lead, and Amara, where was she? Khalil's resolve hardened, but the canal's edge loomed, and the dogs were faster than his fear. Khalil Brooks pressed himself against the dumpster's rusted steel, Nia's shallow breaths beside him, the Dunhill Canal's black water glinting a few yards away. The stranger's warning, "Drayton owns this town," hung heavy, as did the silver, pendant on Khalil's neck, its dents a lifeline to his dad, Marcus, killed in a factory blaze nobody called murder. Lieutenant Curtis Drayton's vigilantes prowled nearby, their dogs snarling, flashlights slicing the lot's weeds. Khalil, 16, was a ghost in his own city. Nia's bullet-grazed shoulder oozed through her bandage. Tasha's shop was ash. Amara's home seized. Silas fighting for air in a hospital. Drayton's fire had burned Khalil's proof. His leaked. Payoffs gone with Nia's smashed tablet, and now his mob hunted them, slurs echoing. Thief's done. The pendant was all Khalil had, its weight a vow to keep running, keep fighting. They slipped from the dumpster, Nia leaning hard, her steps faltering in the mud. Khalil's sneakers squelched, the dog's barks fading but close, too close. He scanned the dark, headlights flared a block away, engines growling. No time. He half-carried Nia toward a warehouse, its brick crumbling, windows boarded but cracked. The door hung loose, hinges groaning as he pushed through, the air inside thick with oil and rot. A figure stirred in the shadows, and Khalil tensed, hand on the pendant, ready to bolt. "Easy," a voice rasped. Janitor, old, his coveralls, patched, face lined like a dry riverbed. "Saw you running, I ain't Drayton's." Khalil exhaled, wary but desperate, Nia slumping against a crate, her face pale. The janitor, Eli, tossed Khalil a water bottle, its plastic warm, and pointed to a corner piled with blankets. "Rest, they'll pass." Khalil helped Nia settle, her bandage dark, her eyes fluttering but fierce. "We've got something," she whispered, pulling a USB from her sock, scratched, but the payoff files lived. Khalil's chest sparked. She'd saved it, their knife against Drayton's throat. Eli watched, silent, then muttered, "Heard about the shop, whole town's whispering your name, kid." Khalil nodded, the pendants dense under his thumb, Marcus's ghost urging him on. He had to hit back harder before Drayton's dogs found them. Nia's fingers shook, plugging the USB into Eli's ancient laptop, its fan whining. Khalil leaned close, the screen's glow cutting his face. Bank records, Drayton's name in bold, wired cash to judges, dates matching buried cases. "Send it," he said, voice low, final. Nia hesitated, her wound slowing her, but nodded, emailing. The files to a state investigator, a name she'd dug from forums, Clara Vance, known for cracking corruption. Dunhill's Bleeding, Nia titled it, hitting send. Khalil's pulse thrummed, protests still burned downtown, Raw's chain snatcher alive, and this could end Drayton, free Amara, bring the chain's clasp home. He clutched the pendant, its scratches. "A map to justice, hope thin but sharp," Vance replied in minutes. "Received, investigating, stay safe." Khalil's grin broke, raw and real. Nia fist-bumped him, weak but defiant, Eli nodding from his corner. By dawn, news hit. State freezes Dunhill cops' assets. The headline screamed, Drayton's accounts locked, his empire cracking. Protests swelled, live streams showing crowds at City Hall, signs blazing. Justice for Brooks. Khalil's name trended. 20,000 posts, his face. School photo, not mugshot. A beacon. He stood taller, the warehouse's gloom lifting, the pendant heavy with Marcus's pride. Drayton was cornered, his payoffs exposed, Amara's suspension wobbling. Khalil dared dream chain hole, family safe, Dunhill his again, but hope was a trap. Noon brought a new headline, slick and venomous. Khalil Brooks wanted, shop arson suspect. Khalil's stomach plummeted, Nia's tablet flashing his face, a grainy still from Tasha's street, his hoodie blurred but damning. Drayton's lie. Clean as a blade, painted him a firebug, the town's enemy. Schools locked down, Dunhill's air thick with fear. Teen terrorist, blogs hissed, 30,000 shares. Khalil's video, his truth drowned in the noise, comments twisting. He burned it himself. Judge's kid's a thug. Nia's eyes widened, tracing the still. It was doctored, a frame from the raid, but Dunhill didn't care. Khalil paced, the warehouse's concrete cold, Eli's face grim. "They're closing in," he said, radio crackling, PD chatter, Khalil's name a curse. A text hit Nia's burner. Amara Brooks arrested. Aiding fugitive. Khalil's knees buckled, the pendant scalding his chest. Amara, penniless, suspended. Now cuffed for him, Drayton's bureaucratic noose tighter than ever. Silas, still frail, had texted from the hospital. "Run, boy. Don't look back." Khalil's eyes burned, not tears but fury, the kind that could break stone. Drayton wasn't slipping. He was thriving, turning Khalil's spark into a manhunt, his family into collateral. Nia's voice cut through, weak but urgent. "We fight." Khalil nodded, but the warehouse felt smaller, walls pressing like Dunhill's. Hate. Eli grabbed a broom, sweeping dirt, his calm a lie. Sirens wailed closer, boots crunching outside. "They're here," he hissed, pointing to a back hatch. Khalil pulled Nia up, her arm limp, the USB safe in his pocket. They stumbled toward the exit, the pendant swinging when glass shattered, windows exploding, flames roaring in. Drayton's men, not cops, tossed Molotovs, fire-swallowing crates, smoke choking the air. Khalil's lungs seized, Nia coughing blood, Eli yelling, "Go!" They dove through the hatch, flames licking their backs, the warehouse a furnace. Khalil's skin blistered, the pendant searing his chest, Marcus's ghost screaming, "Run!" They hit gravel, rolling, Nia's bandage torn, her eyes half shut. The fire's glow lit Dunhill's sky, sirens blending with shouts, "There's the kid!" Khalil dragged Nia behind a shed, its wood splintered, his breath ragged. The USB burned in his pocket, their last card. But the warehouse was gone, Eli trapped. Inside his broom, no shield. Khalil's hope frayed, Drayton's voice in his head, "I see you," sharp as the flames. Protesters' chants faded, Dunhill's streets now a maze of hunters, vigilantes, cops, drones buzzing overhead. Khalil's phone died, news locked out. But he knew the spin. Brooks flees justice. Amara was cuffed, Silas fading, Nia barely conscious, and Khalil was alone, the pendant his only proof he wasn't broken. He tore his sleeve, tying Nia's wound, her pulse faint but stubborn. "Stay with me," he whispered, Marcus's fire in him, weak but alive. The shed shook, boots circled, a radio spitting Drayton's orders. End it. Khalil gripped the pendant. Its dense a vow he'd fight, but Drayton's next blow was coming, a blade bigger than fire, and Amara's cell, where was she? Drop a comment with number 1 if you're gutted by Drayton's lies, framing Khalil as the villain he's fighting. Hit like if you're cheering this kid's unbreakable spirit, and subscribe to catch his next stand against a city gone dark. Can you stomach a world that burns truth to ash? Share your thoughts below. Would you run or swing back against this hate? Khalil's cornered, but is his fight done? Stay tuned for the storm that's breaking. Khalil Brooks huddled in the shed's splintered shadow, Nia's limp weight against him, her blood-soaked bandage warm on his arm. The Dunhill night was a furnace, the warehouse fire's glow still painting the sky, Lieutenant Curtis Drayton's latest blow, "I see you," ringing in Khalil's ears. The silver pendant hung heavy on his neck, its dense a tether to his dad, Marcus, killed in a factory sabotage nobody proved. At 16, Khalil was a fugitive, framed for arson, hunted by Drayton's mob, dogs gone, but boots still crunched. Nearby, radios spitting slurs. Nia's pulse flickered, weak from the church raid's bullet graze. Silas fought for breath in a hospital. Amara sat in a cell, her judgeship ashes. The USB, their proof of Drayton's payoffs, burned in Khalil's pocket, all that stood between him and Dunhill's jaws. He dragged Nia through the lot, her feet scraping gravel, the canal's stink fading behind them. Sirens wailed, distant but closing. Drayton's vigilantes circling like wolves. Khalil's legs burned, his blistered skin raw from the warehouse flames. But the pendant kept him moving. Marcus hadn't quit, and neither would he. A neon sign flickered ahead. Motel 6, its lot empty save a rusted pickup. Khalil shouldered. The office door, the clerk, a kid acne-scarred, earbuds in, barely glancing up. "Room cash," Khalil muttered, sliding crumpled bills from Nia's stash. The clerk tossed a key, number 12, and Khalil half-carried Nia to the room, its air sour with mildew, bed sagging under her weight. He locked the door, curtains drawn, the pendant scratches catching the lamp's dim glow. Nia stirred, eyes half open, voice a rasp. "We're alive." Khalil nodded, forcing a smile, though his chest screamed. Amara cuffed, Silas fading, their home gone. He cleaned her wound with a towel, its threads fraying, her hiss sharp but alive. The Tew. USB sat on the table, scratched but whole, Drayton's bank records a ticking bomb. Khalil's phone was dead, but Nia's burner buzzed, a news clip. Protests gripped Dunhill, cops' assets frozen. Khalil's heart leapt. Vance's probe was biting, the state squeezing Drayton's empire. He clutched the pendant, its dense, a pulse daring to hope. Expose him, free Amara, end this. Khalil needed reach, not just whispers, but a roar. He remembered Jada, a journalist Nia followed, Bama Free Press, who'd cracked a mayor's scam last year. Nia's burner had 1 bar, enough to email the USB's files. Khalil typing fast. Drayton's bought Dunhill. I'm Khalil Brooks. Help. He attached the records, hit send and waited. The motel's hum mocking his pulse. Jada replied in 10 minutes. Got it. Publishing tonight. Stay hidden. Khalil's breath caught. Tonight meant millions, not thousands. Drayton's name in every feed. By midnight, Bama Free Press dropped the story. Dunhill lieutenants' payoffs exposed. Judges, cops implicated. Khalil watched the views climb. 50,000, then 100,000, protests exploding. City Hall swarmed. Chants of Brooks was right shaking the air. Dunhill's streets roared. Live streams showing torches, signs, and chain snatcher falls. Drayton's badge was suspended, news screaming. Lieutenant barred pending probe. Khalil stood, the pendant swinging, a grin breaking through. Marcus's fire, alive in him. Nia's eyes gleamed, her pain forgotten, whispering, "We hit him." Khalil nodded, imagining Amara's cell opening, Silas breathing easy. The chains clasp his again. Dunhill was waking, Drayton's empire cracking. And Khalil felt taller, the motel's walls no match for his spark. He'd done it, turned a stolen pendant into a city's reckoning, and nothing could stop him now. But Drayton didn't kneel. Dawn broke, grey and heavy. The motel's TV spitting news. Nia Brooks kidnapped. Suspect Khalil sought. Khalil's blood froze, Nia's cot empty, her bandage gone. A live stream flickered. Nia, bound in a warehouse, eyes wide. A masked man, holding a knife to her throat. Drayton's voice, distorted but clear, hissed through, "Surrender, kid, or she's gone." Khalil's knees buckled, the pendant scalding his chest. Marcus's ghost silent. The USB, their weapon, was useless. Drayton had flipped the game, his mob snatching Nia while Khalil slept. The journalist's story now a trap. Posts surged. Brooks a danger, 150,000 shares. Dunhill's hope twisting to hate. Khalil's mind raced. Save Nia, no matter the cost. The live stream gave a spot. Dunhill's junkyard, rusted cars like graves, an hour away. He grabbed a hoodie, the pendant tucked under, and ran, the motel's lot blurring, his blisters screaming. Dunhill's dawn was quiet, shops shuttered. But eyes watched, curtains twitching, a kid's bike stilled. Khalil hitched a ride with a trucker, his cab smelling of coffee and grease, who didn't ask questions. The junkyard loomed, its fence jagged, shadows moving inside. Khalil slipped through a gap, gravel crunching, the pendant his only shield. Drayton stood center, lean as a blade, the chain's clasp glinting in his hand. A smirk splitting his face. "You're predictable," Drayton said, voice silk over steel, tossing the clasp like a coin. Nia knelt, gagged, 2 goons pinning her, their boots scuffed with ash. Khalil's fists clenched, the pendant heavy, Marcus's fire raging. "Let her go," he said, voice steady, though his gut churned. Drayton laughed, sharp and cold. "You thought a blog had stopped me. Dunhill's mine." He nodded and the goons moved. Fists flew, boots slammed, Khalil's ribs cracking under blows. He hit gravel, blood flooding his mouth, the pendant swinging, its dents catching starlight. Nia screamed through her gag, muffled, helpless, as Drayton loomed, clasp dangling. "This ends now," he growled, fist raised. Khalil curled, pain blinding, but saw a flash, red light, a cop's body cam, 1 goon's vest blinking live. Drayton froze, eyes narrowing, then swung harder, his knuckles splitting Khalil's cheek. The cam streamed, raw, unfiltered, to feeds. Everywhere, Dunhill justice spiking, 200,000 viewers, gasps rippling online. Khalil's vision blurred, blood pooling, Nia's cries fading, but the cam's light burned, Drayton's fist caught eternal. Khalil choked a laugh, weak but defiant. Marcus hadn't folded, and neither would he. The pendant pressed his chest, a coal still glowing as boots rained down, Dunhill watching, judging, waking. The blows stopped, Drayton panting, the cams, feed cutting as goons dragged Khalil, gravel scraping his back. Nia's gag loosened, her sobs sharp, but she was alive for now. Drayton's clasp vanished into his pocket, his smirk back though shaken. Dunhill saw, and he knew it. Khalil's eyes fluttered, pain a tide, the pendant his anchor. He'd traded himself, lost his body but gained a city's eyes. Drayton thought him broken, but the stream lived, and so did Khalil's fight. Amara, where was she? And Silas, Nia, the chain's clasp. They weren't done, not while he breathed. Khalil Brooks woke to pain, a jagged pulse in his ribs, the hospital bed's thin mattress creaking under him. The Dunhill morning seeped through blinds, grey and heavy, but the silver pendant on his neck burned hotter, its dents clutching Marcus's. Ghost, his dad, killed in a factory nobody called foul. Lieutenant Curtis Drayton's fists had cracked Khalil's bones in the junkyard, his smirk flashing with the chain's stolen clasp, Nia's bound screams echoing. At 16, Khalil was a wreck. Nia freed but scarred, Silas fading in another ward, Amara locked in a cell, her judgeship ash. The body cam leak streaming Drayton's blows had exploded. Dunhill justice trending, 200,000 eyes on Khalil's blood. But Drayton's shadow loomed, his clasp torn to promise of worse. The room smelled of antiseptic and despair, its walls scuffed, a tray of cold oatmeal untouched. Khalil's hand closed around the pendant, its scratches sharp under his thumb, grounding him as pain flared with each breath. A TV flickered, muted, showing protests. City Hall swarmed, signs screaming Brooks was right. The junkyard clip looped, Drayton's fist frozen mid-strike, comments spiking. He's done. Justice now. Khalil's chest stirred. Dunhill saw, cared, fought. A nurse, her braids tight, checked his IV, her eyes soft. You're trending, kid. Stay strong. He nodded, ribs screaming, the pendant a coal of hope. Drayton's arrest hit the news. Lieutenant charged with assault. Cuffs on his. Wrist's badge gone. Nia was safe, her shoulder stitched, sleeping in a cot nearby. Khalil exhaled, shaky but sure. He'd traded his body for this, a city's wake-up, and it felt like winning. He shifted, wincing, the pendant swinging, its dents catching light. Marcus's fire lived in him, unbroken despite Drayton's boots. The protest grew. 300,000 posts. Your chain snatcher buried by the Lord Dunhill justice. Khalil imagined Amara's cell door swinging, Silas's breath steadying, the clasp his again. He'd pushed Drayton to the edge, arrested, exposed, done. Nia stirred, her voice hoarse. We got him, Khalil. He grinned, pain fading for a second, the hospital's hum almost warm. Dunhill was his, the pendant proof he'd stood, fought, won. He closed his eyes, daring to rest, the fight finally tipping his way. But Dunhill's light was a lie. Noon brought a new clip. Drayton's. Lawyer on TV, suit crisp, voice oil slick. The video's inconclusive, he said, eyes glinting. Khalil Brooks provoked the incident. Known arsonist, gang ties. Khalil's stomach dropped, the pendant ice against his chest. The lawyer flashed a still, Khalil's hoodie, grainy. From the shop fire, twisted to look guilty. Comments flipped. He's no victim. Cop was defending himself. 400,000 shares, Dunhill's hope curdling to hate. Khalil's name, once a beacon, became a slur. Thug, liar, danger. The nurse's eyes hardened, her tray clattering as she left. Khalil gripped the pendant, Marcus's ghost silent, betrayal sharper than Drayton's fists. The hospital buzzed, not with care but menace. Footsteps gathered outside, voices rising. Where's Brooks? Slurs cutting through. Khalil sat up, ribs screaming, Nia's eyes wide. The TV flashed. Protests turned violent, Brooks blamed. Drayton's mob, no badges but his venom, swarmed the lot, signs now snarling, no justice for thugs. Windows rattled, fists pounding doors, a bottle shattering somewhere close. Khalil's pulse raced. He'd sparked a reckoning, but Drayton's lie turned it to a lynch mob, Dunhill's streets baring teeth. Nia grabbed her crutches, voice steady despite her shake. We've got to move. Khalil nodded, the pendant heavy, his fight drowned by a city's roar. A doctor burst in, badge pinned crooked, eyes darting. Stay put. Cops are coming. Khalil's gut twisted. Cops meant Drayton's reach, not safety. He swung his legs down, pain blinding, and checked Nia's bag. Nothing but bandages, no USB, their proof safe but useless now. The mob's chants grew. Get him out. Glass. Braking, tires screeching. Khalil's hand brushed his shoe, a glint catching his eye. The chain's clasp, cold and scratched, slipped there by Drayton in the junkyard. A final taunt. His blood boiled, the pendant pulsing. Marcus hadn't bowed, and neither would he. Drayton thought him broken, but this clasp was a blade, proof of hate, and Khalil would wield it. The doctor vanished, shouts closer, a smoke bomb hissing in the hall. Khalil's ribs ached, each step a knife, but he pulled Nia up, her crutches scraping linoleum. The mob breached the lobby, boots stomping, slurs thick. Thugs done. Khalil's mind flashed to Marcus, his dad's toolbox, his laugh, his death. Drayton's lies couldn't touch that. They slipped down a stairwell, air sour with smoke, Nia's breath ragged. A nurse, young, eyes wide, blocked their path, her voice low. They're coming tonight, Drayton's men, not cops. Khalil froze, the clasp burning in his hand, the pendant a vow. Where? He asked. She shook her head, slipping him a key. Service exit, rusted but real. They hit the alley, Dunhill's dusk-cold headlights sweeping nearby. Khalil's ribs screamed, Nia's crutches slowing her, but the pendant kept him sharp, Marcus's fire alive, unquenched. The mob's roar faded, but not far. Their slurs, a whip cracking behind. Khalil clutched the clasp, its edges biting his palm, Drayton's smirk in every scratch. Amara was cuffed, Silas fading, Nia bleeding, and Khalil was running again. Dunhill's hate a tide he couldn't outswim. The key turned, a gate creaking, and they stumbled into a lot, tires crunching gravel, headlights blinding. Khalil raised, the pendant, defiant ready. Drayton's next blow was coming, and he'd face it, clasp in hand. Amara's release hit his burner phone, a text from Silas. She's out, no charges. Khalil's chest eased, but not enough. She was disbarred, penniless, her name ash like his. The hospital's smoke lingered, the mob's hate a scar, and Khalil knew. Drayton, jailed, pulled strings still, his mob proof he'd never quit. Nia's eyes met his, fierce despite pain, and Khalil nodded, the clasp a coal, the pendant a flame. He'd run, hide, strike, no matter Dunhill's weight. Marcus's ghost whispered, stand, and Khalil would, even as headlights closed. Drayton's shadow laughing in the dark. Drop a comment with number 1 if you're floored by Dunhill's betrayal, turning Khalil's truth into a mob's hate. Hit like if you're rooting for this kid to rise from these ashes, and subscribe. To see how he fights a city gone rogue. Can you bear a world that flips justice to venom? Share your thoughts below. Would you stand with Khalil or run from that mob? He's running, but is his spark snuffed? Stay locked in for what's next. Khalil Brooks stumbled through the Dunhill alley, Nia's crutches scraping gravel. The hospital mob's slurs, thugs done, still ringing in his ears. The silver pendant hung heavy on his neck, its dents a lifeline to his dad, Marcus, killed. In a factory blaze nobody dared name murder. Lieutenant Curtis Drayton's clasp slipped into Khalil's shoe during the junkyard beating, burned in his pocket, a taunt sharper than the mob's bottles. At 16, Khalil was a shadow. Nia's shoulder bled through fresh bandages. Silas fought for air in a ward. Amara, disbarred, walked free but broken. The body cam leak had sparked hope. Drayton cuffed, but his mob flipped Dunhill's heart, framing Khalil as fraud, arsonist, threat. The nurse's key had saved them, but headlights swept close and Khalil's ribs screamed with every step. They reached a sanctuary, Mount Zion Baptist, its steeple cracked but proud, a haven for Dunhill's West End. Reverend Hayes, grey-haired, eyes like coal, opened the side door, his voice low. You're safe here. Khalil helped Nia inside, her crutches wobbling on the worn oak floor, the air thick with wax and prayer. Pews stretched into shadow, a stained glass Jesus glowing faintly, and Khalil's chest eased, the pendant warm against his skin. Nia sank into a seat, her face pale but fierce, pulling a burner phone from her sock. We've got the clasp, she said, voice hoarse, and the USB. Khalil nodded, the clasp scratches biting his palm. Drayton's hate, now his weapon. Silas arrived, wheeled in by a deacon, his 70-year frame frail but eyes blazing. "You're still standing," he said, voice gravelly, a smile cracking through. Khalil hugged him, gentle, feeling bones too sharp under his jacket. "Always," he whispered, "the pendant a vow, Marcus's fire, unquenched. Nia's burner." Pinged, a livestream app open, and Khalil saw his chance. "We tell it all," he said, voice steady. "Drayton's payoffs, the clasp, everything." Nia grinned, weak but sharp, setting up the feed, Mount Zion's pews their stage. Khalil faced the phone, pendant glinting, clasp raised like a blade. "This is Khalil Brooks," he began, ribs aching but sure. "Drayton stole my dad's chain, framed me, burned my home. This clasp, he kept it, laughed while he beat me. Dunhill, wake up." The stream exploded, 10,000 views, then 50,000, comments flooding, "He's telling truth, Drayton's done." Protests reignited, live streams showing crowds at Dunhill's jail, signs screaming "Free Brooks." Khalil's voice cracked, naming Drayton's judges, the payoffs, the mob, his hands shaking but clear. Nia's feed hit 100,000, Racha Dunhill justice spiking, and Khalil felt Marcus's ghost nod, justice, close enough to touch. Reverend Hayes clapped his shoulder, Silas's eyes wet, and Khalil dared hope. Amara home, the chain whole, Drayton buried. The pendant burned, a coal of victory, Dunhill his for one bright second. But churches burn in Dunhill. Sirens screamed closer, no warning, and boots stormed Mount Zion's doors, wood splintering under battering rams. Khalil froze, Nia's phone, dropping, the stream cutting mid-sentence. Drayton's men, not cops, no badges, flooded in, vests black, rifles raised, faces masked, but eyes gleaming hate. "Brooks," one barked, voice thick with slurs. "Time's up." Khalil shoved Nia behind a pew. Silas's wheelchair stuck, his curses sharp. A bomb rolled, hissing, not smoke, but fire. Flames erupted, licking hymnals, pews igniting like tinder. Khalil's lungs seized, the pendant scalding. Marcus's ghost screaming, "Run." The church roared, glass shattering, dozens trapped, deacons, kids, elders, screams blending with crackling wood. Khalil dove for Silas, yanking his chair free, splinters cutting his hands. Nia stumbled, crutches gone, her bandage torn, and Khalil pulled her, ribs cracking under strain. Flames blocked the door, heat blistering his face, but a side window hung loose, its frame warped. He smashed it, glass raining, and pushed Silas through, coughing blood, his heart faltering. Khalil lifted Nia, her weight crushing his ribs, and followed, landing on grass, smoke choking the sky. The church burned, a beacon of hate, Dunhill's west end lit like a pyre. Khalil's eyes stung, not just smoke. Mount Zion sacred was ash, Drayton's answer to his stream. They crawled to a ditch, sirens blaring, survivors scattering, Hayes carrying a child, an elder limping alone. Khalil's burner buzzed. News. Breaking. Amara Brooks missing. Car crash reported. His heart stopped, the pendant ice, the clasp a blade in his hand. Amara, 3 hours ago, now gone, her car a wreck staged by Drayton's reach. He checked Nia, alive, bleeding, eyes fierce. Silas gasped, clutching his chest, medics nowhere. Khalil's mind spun. Drayton, on bail, had bombed a church, vanished Amara, laughed through it all. A glint caught his eye. Paper, singed in the rubble. He grabbed it, unfolding fast. A memo, Drayton's voice on tape, admitting payoffs. Assaults signed in ink. Khalil's blood roared. This was it, the kill shot. He tucked the memo, pendant swinging, clasped tight in his fist. Dunhill's flames lit his path, but no safe roads led out. Nia's hand gripped his, weak but sure, Silas's eyes fading but fixed. Khalil's ribs bled, each breath a knife, but Marcus's ghost whispered, "Fight." The church was gone, Amara. Lost, Silas slipping. But the memo burned brighter than Drayton's fire. Khalil would run, strike, win, no matter the cost. Drayton's taunt, "Your chain's mine," was a lie, and Khalil would prove it, even as sirens closed, Dunhill's hate, a noose tightening fast. Khalil Brooks clutched the singed memo in his trembling fist, its ink smudged but damning. Lieutenant Curtis Drayton's voice, caught on tape, confessing payoffs, assaults, a blueprint of Dunhill's rot. The Mount Zion Baptist fire still roared. Behind him, its flames licking the night sky. The church's splintered pews a grave for hope. Khalil, 16, crouched in a ditch. Nia's bloodied bandage pressed against her shoulder. Silas's gasps shallow beside his wheelchair, the silver pendant on Khalil's neck heavy with his dad's ghost. Marcus, killed in a factory sabotage. Nobody named. Drayton's bomb had trapped dozens. Amara was missing, her car a staged wreck, and Khalil's ribs bled, each breath a blade. The chain's clasp, Drayton's taunt, burned in his pocket, a vow to fight. But Dunhill's sirens wailed, closing fast. He helped Nia stand, her crutches lost to the blaze, her eyes fierce despite pain. Silas gripped his arm, 70 years etched in his scowl, voice hoarse. "Get that memo out, boy." Khalil nodded, the pendants dense under his thumb, Marcus's fire unquenched. They limped through weeds, the ditch's mud sucking their shoes. Dunhill's West End a maze of smoke and threat. A deacon's van idled nearby, its driver, Hayes's nephew, jaw tight, waving them in. "Feds are sniffing," he said, engine rumbling. Khalil handed him the memo, voice low. "Get this to Vance, state investigator, now." The driver nodded, peeling out, the paper his last shot at Drayton's throat. They reached a safe house, a barbershop 2 miles east, its neon clipper sign dark but windows warm. Old men played dominoes inside, their laughs pausing as Khalil staggered in, Nia leaning hard, Silas wheeled behind. The owner, Pops, bald and broad, locked the door, his eyes scanning Khalil's bloodied shirt. "You're the Brooks kid," he said, no question, just truth. Khalil nodded, the pendant glinting, the clasp safe in his sock now, hidden from Dunhill's claws. Nia sank into a chair, her bandage seeping, and Khalil checked his burner. News broke. Feds raid Drayton's office, ledger seized. His pulse surged. The memo had hit. Vance moving fast, Drayton charged with racketeering, cuffs back on. Headlines screamed, "Dunhill cop falls, 500,000 shares, protests choking City Hall." Khalil stood taller, the barbershop's hum grounding him, dominoes clicking like a heartbeat. Pops clapped his shoulder. Silas grinned, weak but real. Nia's eyes sparking despite her pain. "We did it," Khalil whispered, the pendant a coal of victory, Marcus's ghost nodding. Drayton was done. Ledgers tied him to hate groups. His empire dust. Khalil imagined the chain whole, Amara safe, Silas strong, Dunhill his again. He slipped the clasp into his hand. It scratches a map of his fight and felt hope, raw and sharp, for the first time since the courthouse's cold theft. But Dunhill's hope was poison. Dawn broke, grey and biting, the barbershop's radio. Crackling news. Khalil Brooks wanted, church bombing suspect. Khalil's stomach plummeted, the pendant ice against his chest. CCTV footage, grainy but damning, flashed. Him blurred near Mount Zion holding explosives. A lie doctored, Drayton's blade sharper than ever. Posts surged, terrorist teen, 600,000 shares, Dunhill's streets turning, neighbors who'd cheered now spat his name. Silas cursed, his wheelchair creaking, voice shaking. He's playing God. Khalil's eyes burned, the clasp biting his palm. Drayton, cuffed, still swung, his allies framing Khalil as the devil to save their king. Nia's burner died, but not before a hack. Her accounts hijacked, spewing lies. Khalil confesses. 700,000 views, Dunhill's faith gone, protests souring. Brooks betrayed us. Khalil's ribs ached, each breath a fight, the pendant his only anchor. He slipped from the barbershop, Nia and Silas behind, Pops's warning low. Streets ain't safe. They hit Dunhill's sewers, pipes dripping, air sour with rot. Khalil's sneakers slipping on slime. SWAT teams roamed above, radios barking, suspect armed, dangerous. Khalil's mind spun. The memo had stung Drayton, but this frame-up was war painting him a bomber, stripping his name, his kin, his heir. They emerged in a rail yard, rusted cars like bones. Dunhill's dusk cold and sharp. A text hit Silas's phone. Amara found. Comatose, crash staged. Khalil's knees buckled, the pendant scalding. Marcus's ghost silent. Amara, free yesterday, now lay broken. Drayton's wreck a noose for her defiance. Nia's eyes welled, her bandage dark, but she grabbed Khalil's arm. We keep going. He nodded, the clasp a vow but headlights flared. Drayton's men, no badges, guns drawn, faces masked but smirking. End of the line, Brooks, one growled, slurs thick, rifle glinting. Khalil's pulse roared, the pendant swinging, his fight cornered in Dunhill's gut. He raised his hands slow, the clasp hidden, baiting time. How you've got nothing, he said, voice steady, ribs screaming. The leader laughed, cocking his gun when a shot rang. Not at Khalil, but a tire, rubber, hissing. Officer Tate, Drayton's deputy, stepped from shadows, his buzz cut gleaming, eyes torn, guilt, fear, defiance. Back off, Tate barked, gun raised, giving Khalil seconds. Khalil dove, pulling Nia, Silas's chair scraping, into a boxcar's dark, its steel cold. Bullets pinged, Tate's voice fading, a traitor's stand swallowed by Dunhill's hate. Khalil's breath ragged. The pendant pressed his chest, the clasp his blade. He'd lost Amara, nearly Silas, but Tate's shot was a crack in Drayton's wall. They hid, the boxcar's rust flaking, Nia's pulse weak, Silas's eyes fluttering. Khalil checked the clasp, its scratches screaming. Drayton's taunt, now his proof. The memo had landed, feds circling, but this frame-up twisted Dunhill's. Sold Khalil a bomber in every eye. He tore his shirt, tying Nia's wound, her nod fierce despite pain. Silas whispered, "You're Marcus's boy." And Khalil felt it. Fire, unbowed, even as SWAT lights swept closer, radios spitting lies. Amara's coma, Silas's fade, Nia's blood, Drayton's price for his fight, but Khalil held the clasp, the pendant, a vow to end it, no matter Dunhill's next trap. Khalil Brooks curled in the boxcar's rusted belly, Nia's shallow breaths beside him. Silas's wheelchair wedged against splintered wood, the Dunhill rail yard's shadows swallowing them whole. The silver pendant hung heavy on his neck, its dents a pulse of his dad, Marcus, killed in a factory nobody called sabotage. Lieutenant Curtis Drayton's clasp, scratched and cold, burned in Khalil's sock, a taunt from the junkyard beating now-turned blade. At 16, Khalil was a hunted ghost. Nia's shoulder oozed blood, Silas's heart faltered. Amara lay comatose from a staged crash. The memo, Drayton's taped confession, had sparked federal raids, his cuffs back on, but the bombing frame-up, Khalil, as Mount Zion's destroyer, twisted Dunhill's soul, 600,000 posts branding him terrorist. Officer Tate's tire shot had saved them from Drayton's men, but SWAT lights swept close, sewers echoing with boots. Khalil's ribs screamed, each breath a shard, the pendant his anchor, Marcus's fire unbowed. Nia stirred, her bandage dark, eyes fierce despite pain. "We've got the clasp," she whispered, burner phone dead but her will alive. Silas's hand, frail but firm, gripped Khalil's. "End him, boy." Khalil nodded, the clasp's edges, biting Drayton's lies, teen bomber, no match for truth. They slipped from the boxcar, gravel crunching, Dunhill's dusk cold and sharp. A safe house waited, Pops's barber shop, neon dark, but doors open a mile through alleys. Khalil carried Nia, her weight crushing his ribs. Silas's chair rattling, the pendant swinging, a vow to bury Drayton's hate. Pops met them, his broad frame filling the door, dominoes silent inside, old men's eyes sharp with worry. "You're marked," he said, locking up, the barbershop's air thick with pomade and fear. Khalil set Nia in a chair, its vinyl cracked. Silas parked beside Clippers, his breath ragged but steady. The clasp gleamed in Khalil's hand, the pendant a coal, and he pulled Nia's old laptop, borrowed from Pops, keys worn, from a bag. "One more stream," he said, voice low, final. Nia nodded, hacking a signal, the shop's bulb flickering as the feed went live. Khalil faced the screen, clasp raised, pendant bared. "Dunhill, this is Khalil Brooks. Drayton bombed Mount." Zion framed me, hurt my mom. This clasp, he kept it, laughed while he burned us. Here's his voice. He played the memo, Drayton's snarl clear. Pay 'em, break 'em, Dunhill's mine. Its ink scarred, but true. Views soared, 10,000, 50,000, 1,000,000. Comments raging. He's exposed. Brooks is us. Protests choked Dunhill's core. Live streams showing torches, chants, Khalil's truth shaking pavement. Drayton's empire crumbled. Feds leaking more. Ledgers, tapes, hate group ties. Cops turned. Allies fled. Headlines screaming, Dunhill, Lieutenant Dunn. Khalil's chest swelled, the pendant pulsing, Marcus's ghost roaring. Nia grinned, Silas's eyes wet, Pops clapping slow. You broke him, kid. Khalil stood, clasp in fist, imagining Amara waking, the chain whole, Dunhill free. But freedom was a trap. A text hit Pops's phone. Amara cleared. Crash proved. Staged, Khalil's heart leapt. She'd named Drayton's driver, waking from her coma, feds circling tighter. He felt victory, raw, real, the clasp a blade to finish it. Then glass shattered, the barbershop's windows exploding, a bomb's raw swallowing sound. Flames erupted, clippers melting, chairs charring, Khalil thrown to the floor, ribs cracking anew. Nia screamed, Silas's chair tipped, Pops diving for cover, dominoes scattering like bones. Khalil's lungs burned, the pendant scalding. Marcus's, ghost silent. Drayton, escaped from custody, had struck, his fire fiercer than Mount Zion's. Khalil crawled, blood in his eyes, the clasp clenched, the pendant choking him as debris pinned his legs. Smoke choked Dunhill's air, sirens useless, the shop a pyre. Nia's hand found his, pulling, her bandage torn, strength fading. Get up, she yelled, voice raw, dragging him free, rubble biting their knees. Silas lay still, chest heaving, Pops coughing beside him, alive but dazed. Khalil's vision blurred, lungs failing. The memo's words, break 'em, Drayton's creed, now real. He kicked debris, freeing Silas's chair, Nia hoisting Pops, the shop's roof groaning, ready to cave. They staggered outside, flames licking the sky. Dunhill's west end lit like judgment. A glint caught Khalil's eye. Dust, swirling, held. The chain's clasp scratched, untouched. Drayton's last laugh. He grabbed it, fingers bleeding, the pendant a vow. Marcus hadn't quit, and neither would he. Pops's phone buzzed, feds live. Tate confesses, Drayton's judge, bribed. Khalil's breath caught. Tate, the deputy who'd shot the tire, named Drayton's fixer, cracking his core. SWAT swarmed, not for Khalil but Drayton, caught planting drugs on tape, cuffs snapping live, 1,000,000 eyes watching. Khalil's ribs bled. Nia's arm shook, Silas's pulse flickered, but Amara's voice, finish it, rang in his head. They hid in an alley. The barbershop's fire a beacon. Dunhill's streets split, half chanting Khalil's name, half spitting his face. A sniper's shot grazed Khalil's arm, blood welling, Drayton's men still hunting, their rifles glinting. Nia pulled him low, Silas's eyes fluttering, Pops guarding their backs. Khalil clutched the clasp, its scratches screaming. Drayton's. Escape, his bomb, his snipers, all proof he'd die before yielding. The pendant burned, Marcus's fire alive, but Khalil's legs shook, blood pooling, Dunhill's hate a tide. He'd broadcast truth, broken Drayton, but the shop was ash. Amara. Frail, Silas fading, and snipers circled, ready to end it. Khalil Brooks crouched in the Dunhill alley, blood trickling from the sniper's graze on his arm. The barbershop's fire roaring a block away, its ash thick in the air. The silver pendant hung heavy on his neck, its dents a lifeline to his dad. Marcus, while the chains clasp, scratched and cold, pulsed in his hand. Lieutenant Curtis Drayton's final taunt, reclaimed from the rubble. At 16, Khalil was a battered warrior. Nia's shoulder bled beside him. Silas's breath rattled in his wheelchair. Amara, cleared but frail, recovered from a staged coma. Drayton's empire had crumbled. Feds swarmed. Tate's confession exposed his bribed judge. Live feeds caught him planting drugs, cuffs snapping tight. But snipers still hunted. Dunhill split. half chanting Khalil's name, half burning his face in effigy. The pendant and clasp now whole burned with Marcus's ghost, a vow to end this. But Khalil's legs shook, his ribs cracked, the city's hate a noose. He tied Nia's bandage tighter, her eyes fierce despite pain, her nod a spark, keep fighting. Silas gripped his cane, 70 years carved in his scowl, voice hoarse. Finish it, boy. Khalil nodded, the clasp's edges biting, the pendant a coal. Drayton's trial loomed, feds circling, but snipers' boots crunched close, radios. Spitting slurs, Brooks is done. Khalil scanned the alley. Dumpsters, cracked pavement, a service gate rusted but open. He pushed Silas's chair, Nia limping, the pendant swinging, Marcus's fire alive. They slipped through, Dunhill's dusk cold, a church bell tolling, ironic. After Mount Zion's ash, Khalil's burner buzzed. Pops from the barbershop's ruin. Feds want you caught. Now. Khalil's pulse surged. Testify. Bury Drayton. Win. He needed a trap, not a chase. Drayton, cuffed but slippery, thrived on Dunhill's split soul, half his, half Khalil's. Khalil whispered to Nia, stream it. She hacked a signal, her burner shaky but live, the alley their stage. Khalil faced the phone, pendant and clasp raised, blood streaking his face. Dunhill, I'm Khalil Brooks. Drayton stole my chain, bombed our church, broke my mum. I'm going to court. Watch him fall. Views spiked. 10,000, 100,000, comments roaring. He's... Truth, end Drayton. Khalil's voice cracked, naming the memo. Tate's shot, Amara's crash, the clasp's taunt. He lured Drayton, baiting his pride. Come get me, Curtis. The stream hit 1 million. Dunhill's streets alive, half marching, half snarling. They moved. Khalil carrying Nia's weight, Silas's chair rattling, the pendant pulsing. Feds met them at Dunhill's courthouse, its concrete stark, the same hall where Drayton stole the chain months ago. Agents, vests tight, ushered them in, guns drawn, not for Khalil, but snipers trailing. Khalil's ribs bled, each step fire. But the clasp burned brighter, Marcus's ghost roaring stand. The courtroom was packed, gallery buzzing, Dunhill's pulse split, protesters outside chanting, effigies burning across town. Amara presided, robe crisp, face gaunt but steel, her coma's scars hidden. Khalil's chest eased. She was back, Dunhill's first black judge, unbroken despite Drayton's wreck. Drayton sat, cuffed, lean as a blade, smirk gone but eyes venomous. Khalil took the stand, pendant and clasp in fist, voice steady. He stole my dad's chain, framed me, burned our church, hurt my mom. He played the memo, Drayton snarl, pay 'em, break 'em, filling the room, gasps rippling. Tate testified, voice shaking, naming the judge Drayton bought, the drugs he planted. Feds piled ledgers, tapes, hate group ties, Drayton's empire dust. Amara's gavel cracked, verdict swift, life, no parole. Khalil stood, the pendant glowing, clasp tight, Marcus's fire blazing. Drayton was done, Dunhill his, the chain whole. He exhaled, Nia's hand on his, Silas's grin weak, but real, Amara's eyes meeting his proud. The gallery roared, half cheers, half boos, Dunhill's soul still torn. Khalil stepped down, pendant swinging, clasp pocketed, free at last. He imagined Silas strong, Nia healed, Amara whole, the chain a beacon of victory. Protesters swarmed. Outside, signs high, Khalil won. And Khalil felt Dunhill shift, his name no longer ash. He touched the pendant, its dense a map of survival, and walked the hall, Amara beside him, Silas rolling, Nia limping, family forged in fire. But freedom cracked like glass. A Fed slipped Khalil a drive, unmarked, urgent. Watch this, now. Khalil plugged it into Nia's burner, the screen flickering. Tate's body cam not from the junkyard but years back, grainy but clear. Drayton, younger, planting the chain, Khalil's chain, in Marcus's locker, factory floor dark. His voice, "No thief's done," a report followed. Marcus Brooks theft fired. Days later, the blast, Marcus dead, accident. Khalil's blood froze, the pendant scalding, clasp a blade. Drayton hadn't just stolen, he'd killed, framed Marcus, sparked the fire that took him. Khalil's fight, every blow, wasn't just his. It was Marcus's justice, a murder buried. Till now. His knees buckled, Nia catching him, her gasp sharp. Silas's eyes widened, 70 years of grief cracking open. Marcus, his son, avenged. Amara froze, robe trembling, her coma's scars raw, Drayton's wreck, her crash, all tied. To Marcus's blood, Khalil's voice broke, whispering, "He killed Dad." The gallery hushed, Dunhill's hum pausing, the body cam's truth a bomb. Drayton's cuffs rattled, his face grey, no smirk left. Caught, not just for Khalil, but Marcus, a ghost risen. Feds swarmed, charges piling, murder now, not just racketeering. And Khalil stood, pendant and clasp whole, Marcus's fire a sun. Dunhill reeled, the body cam leaking. 1 million views. Marcus was murdered trending. The mayor resigned, caught in Drayton's ledgers, Amara promoted, circuit judge, her bench restored. Khalil walked the courthouse steps, pendant glinting, clasp. Pocketed. Nia's arm looped in his, Silas rolling strong, Amara's robe proud. Protesters cheered, thousands strong, but across town effigies still burned, Drayton's allies whispering, "We're not done." Khalil's chest tightened, the chain heavier, its scratches a vow. He'd won, but Dunhill's hate lingered, a shadow. Waiting, he spoke at a vigil, not for victory but survival. Mount Zion's ash behind him, Dunhill's split soul watching. "They took my chain, my home, my peace, but not me," he said, voice raw, pendant raised. "Drayton killed my dad, framed him, broke us, but we stood." The crowd roared, half Dunhill his, half hissing, thug's luck. Khalil's eyes burned. Not tears, but truth. Marcus's death wasn't his end, but his spark, a fight Khalil carried now. He named the chain's weight, blood loss, defiance, and walked off, pendant gleaming, clasp safe. Amara's nod his shield, Dunhill's streets stretched, some bright with signs. Khalil's truth, others dark with graffiti. Brooks' lies. Khalil moved through, head high, the pendant a beacon, its dense Marcus's map. Silas healed, slow but sure, Nia's stitches faded. Amara's gavel rang, but Drayton's allies plotted, their whispers a blade. Next time. Khalil touched the chain, whole at last, its scratches screaming. He'd fought, won, lost, and stood. Dunhill wasn't free, not yet, but Khalil was, his name no longer ash but fire, Marcus's ghost alive in every step. Khalil Brooks' journey in Dunhill unveils a raw truth. Resilience against systemic racism demands unrelenting courage. At 16, Khalil faced a racist cop's theft of his father's chain, a symbol of Marcus, murdered by the same hate. Each blow, raids, frame-ups, bombings, tested his spirit, yet he stood pendant and clasp in hand, exposing Curtis Drayton's empire. His fight wasn't just personal, it was generational, unmasking Marcus's killer and Dunhill's rot. The lesson burns clear. Racism's roots run deep, twisting justice, splitting communities, but one voice unwavering can spark change. Khalil's silence in court, his live-streamed truth, his vigil's words, "They took my peace but not me," show defiance isn't loud, it's steady. Amara's gavel, Nia's hacks, Silas's grit prove family fuels resistance, even when hope phrase. Dunhill's split soul, half cheering, half hating, mirrors our world, where victories like Drayton's fall don't erase lurking shadows. Khalil teaches us to face those shadows, to hold truth tighter than fear, to fight not for applause, but survival. His chain, whole at last, carries blood, loss, fire, a reminder that standing against racism costs everything, but yields something stronger, identity unbroken. Drop a comment with your thoughts. How would you stand against a system's hate? Hit like if Khalil's fire inspires you, subscribe for more truths and share to spread his spark. Thank you for witnessing this fight. Here's to courage that outshines darkness.